Welcome to the Dropship Podcast, where you'll learn how to build and grow a high-ticket dropshipping business and hear stories from successful e-commerce entrepreneurs. Let's kick this thing off. Hey, welcome to the Dropship Podcast. We're back with another Freedom Friday episode with one of my best friends in the entire world and former business partner, Brian Angel. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I know when you're listening, you can't see it, but Brian is sitting in the back of an RV in outside of Orlando, Florida, traveling with his family. And that's part of the reason I wanted to have Brian on the show is he's living a life. Maybe it's not for me personally, but like this is what him and his family wanted to do. And this is what building your own business, whatever that may be, allows you to do, allows you to have the life you want to have now and not wait till you're 65 to retire to go live in an RV, which I'm sure, Brian, there's not many families in the RV park, similar to your family, right? I know when I came in, or when you came and visit me, rather, when we both met up here in Destin, there was a lot of retired folks, right? A lot of older folks, and the ability for you to be able to do this in your late 30s, early 40s, I'm not sure exactly where you're at there, with your family, with two, kids under 10, that's unbelievable, and so that's really why I wanted to have you on here. Plus, you've done some really cool things in business outside of dropshipping, like where you've evolved to is pretty cool.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. It's, you're right. There's probably not a lot of entrepreneurs that are able to work and travel on the road where I am. A lot of families, maybe a few less retirees here, because I'm actually, so full disclosure, right now I'm sitting in the bedroom of my RV in Fort Wilderness, basically at Disney World. We just went to the Magic Kingdom 2 days ago, and the rest of the time we're just sort of enjoying the environment, the Disney environment. But yeah, there's a lot of kids, a lot of families, but most of them don't have the luxury of being able to travel full time the way that we do and still be able to feed a family of 4 and a dog and the whole thing.
Yeah, I didn't really put 2 and 2 together there, that you're sitting basically at Disney's RV park, like where people stay to go there. So I would imagine there are a lot of families there. But, thinking back to up here on the Panhandle when you were passing through, wasn't necessarily that. And I don't know. I think what you do is amazing. I think we have a mutual friend as well, Anastasia Vankova, who's also kind of doing this with her family as well via dropshipping. And so I wanted you on here. I need to get Anastasia on here as well and really talk about what you're able to do when you own your own business. Like it frees you up to make decisions that other people really can't make. They can't leave, right? And COVID changed that a little bit with the remote work and things like that, allowed some people to move. I know you and I ran into a guy on the golf course while you were here who, due to remote work, he was here with his wife previous, and now he's taking a month off pre-retirement to kind of test it out. And so I think COVID has opened this up a little bit, but really owning your own business is the ultimate freedom. And that's the only thing I ever want to tell people is like, do your own thing, make your own way. And you're living that, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would want to emphasize that goes both ways, right? So I do think a lot of people that are looking to get into online entrepreneurship, be it through drop shipping, selling products on Amazon, affiliate marketing, whatever it is, I think many of them do have a vision of laptop on the beach, or traveling through Europe. And frankly, that's sort of what I'm doing, my version of that now, right? My family version of that right now in the RV traveling around the United States. But what I would say is that this is sort of a cycle for me. And I think you and I actually sometimes are a bit unique, or we differentiate from that in that we both actually like building businesses too. It's not just a means to fun. It's actually that, we enjoy the passion and the challenge of building a business. And so, right now, I think COVID sent us all into this weird headspace. And so for my wife and I, the cycle of our journey came to a point where we decided, okay, let's do that. Let's be the travelers. Let's get out and seek adventure and see the country. And I'll be honest, we're already, we started 9 months ago. We're already feeling the urge to get back, create some normalcy. And I feel the urge to get back to building because while it's great that this lifestyle, this business, allows me to do this, it also allows me to go back and build something bigger and better and deeper and more meaningful too. You can take it in so many different ways.
Yeah, I think it comes with age, right? So when I first started, I was 29, 30, and I was sold on that dream. You're going to sit on a beach in Thailand and work on your laptop for 2 hours a day. And while you can do that, no question, you can do that. Like you said, after a little while, it's going to get a little old. At least for me, I want to travel and see other things, let alone that's more of a maintenance period if I'm honest, right? Like you got to put in work. You're building a real business here, right? This doesn't just completely run on autopilot. You're going to need to run it or hire a team, which you're going to need to manage the team. And so while you can work, I don't want to say the 4 hour work week, I bet you easily could work 3-4 hours a day and build this business. But you're right, there's times where I just want to get head down as well and build. Like I love being an entrepreneur. I love being a business builder. It's about the freedom, but it's also about like the challenge and the growth that comes through entrepreneurship.
And I think there's sustainability in that yes, you really can. You can create a drop shipping store, and you can probably make a few $1,000s a month fairly easily, right? Working very little. But it's at that stage of the business cycle, it is very indefensible against newcomers that come in and basically do the exact same thing. And I think the phrase that if you're not growing, you're dying is kind of true. And so I think that's why you and I we've always maybe talked more about the upside of really pushing to make this something bigger and better and more meaningful than just the, hey, if you build it, they will come. If you build a store, you'll get some customers, you can go travel around the world, and it's just as simple as that. I think there's something more meaningful to be had, and something more sustainable as a business to be had if you're willing to put in a little bit of extra work.
Yeah, I think you and I concur on like actually giving a shit about your customers and your product and things like that. And we're going to get there, right? You've acquired a couple companies via dropshipping, right? You had a dropshipping business. You acquired one of the companies in there. You acquired another company. And I want to talk through how you did that and like why that made sense, and then why that's you and why that makes sense. But let's jump all the way back, right? Let's get out of the RV, if you will, and go way back to the beginning. How did you even start, Brian? What motivated you to start? Were you doing any side hustles prior to this? Were you an entrepreneur your whole life? Were you, selling baseball cards and stuff as a kid, or flipping Pokemon cards or Pogs or whatever was cool back in our really old day?
I wouldn't consider myself like the Gary Vee type. I wasn't the guy that was always trying to, that was always finding ways to make a quick buck here or there. When I was younger, I was more focused on sports. As I got older, and sort of got into business, I was, I had some prominent sales and marketing positions. And at one point I was part of a startup company, but no, it was more that I always felt like I could do it. Both my wife and I felt like we could do it. My wife for years worked for a digital marketing agency that basically enabled hundreds, if not thousands of entrepreneurs with small online businesses thrive. That was sort of their world for a little while. So we had this window into the possibilities. But like a lot of people, I think we were just caught up in the jobs that we had, right? We actually had really good jobs. We had high paying jobs. I had both of my kids before I started our first drop shipping business. We were pretty entrenched in that world. And so for those people that are like that, they understand that you get that paycheck and it's really hard. You sort of become captive to it, right? We made a good amount of money, but yet we never felt wealthy. We never really felt much sense of abundance. It was just somehow it always, disappeared, for lack of a better way of saying it. And so we started in 2016. We started our first drop shipping business. I would say for about the year before that, we had been thinking about it. We had been brainstorming different ideas. We knew we wanted to start our own business, probably online at some point. We just didn't really know when. And I think I'm probably one of the lucky few that where in the first try was the successful one. I didn't have a lot of other things that I tried before finding something that worked and supported us.
What was the pain, right? You just talked about how you and your wife had pretty cushy jobs. You were part of a startup, your wife was part of a bigger company with options in the company. Where's the pain there, right? I think a lot of people listening are like, well, you're probably making six figures, both of you, and like you're happy, you're in California, which is at least in 2016 pretty amazing to both of us, I think, and probably amazing to a lot of people for the weather. And like, where's the pain there for you, where you're like, I think we should start something different?
It was freedom and time. That's what we wanted. I mean, just being fully honest, we were miserable. Before, if you go back about a year before starting, I was working in Culver City. I spent about 2.5 hours a day commuting in a car. I had a great job, great people around me. By all accounts, I should have been the happiest guy in the world, and I wasn't. And at that point, my wife was largely working from home. She was going into the office 1 or 2 days a week, but still, we just both felt like slaves. It was never for us. We just hated working for other people. We hated that even though we had the money to afford a lot of things, we didn't have the time and we didn't have the freedom to really live life the way we wanted to and to be around each other as much as we wanted to. And this was a means of fixing that, of undoing that.
How did you land on high ticket dropshipping, right? You said you were exploring in online businesses, and there's a ton of them out there, and they're all very appealing in their own right? Affiliate marketing, you don't have to deal with customers, right? You just need to figure out a way to generate traffic and get people to click through your links. Dropshipping has its own pros and cons that we've talked about on previous episodes. Amazon FBA, I started a business in there that has its own pros and cons as well. Amazon can be a nightmare sometimes. And so what made you land on high ticket dropshipping specifically?
I don't know exactly. Some of it was probably just serendipity, right? Like, right moment, right time. I think, I know this all started when I did have that job, and I was spending all that time commuting. This was in the heart of the Tim Ferriss Show podcast days. And I remember listening to that religiously, every time a new one was out, I was listening to it in the car, which started opening my mind up to different ideas. And one of the people that he had on that spoke to me at the time was Ramit Sethi, if you're familiar with him. And so the initial thing that we did was Allie and I actually took a course that he had, which was sort of like an idea generator. It spread the gambit of anything from content businesses to product businesses, all kinds of stuff. It was just more about finding some cross section of passion and opportunity, and then understanding how to take a business idea and market it, whatever that was. But in the process of going through that course, I came across Dropship Lifestyle, and it just the idea of drop shipping spoke to me as a way to as sort of a way to accelerate into the world of selling products online. It just made a lot of sense to me that as a first stepping stone, why not sell other people's products and learn a bunch of stuff? And then I knew before I even started that business that I was going to sell my own. In fact, I was already looking for my own product to sell while I was doing research for the store. And in fact, one of our best suppliers in the early days was a company that I initially reached out to thinking I was going to white label their products. And they ended up actually being a supplier, and we sold their brand for, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years.
So much like I'm sure plenty of people listening to this, like I also took Dropship Lifestyle back in the day, and I think it's important to note that I think that course helped me and you and John and a few other people like get started, right? And so if you hear people referencing that, I've got nothing but love for that course, but there's a reason we created Dropship Breakthrough, because we feel like there's a lot missing there. There's a lot on how to go from 1 to 10, right? I think that course is great at 0 to 1. And we created Dropship Breakthrough to not only take you 0 to 1, but 1 to 10. So I just want to make sure we touch on that. We definitely get some questions around there. So anyway, back to the story. So as you're like jumping in here, how did you land on the niche you chose? And we can share your story, whether you want to be open about it or not, that's up to you. But like, how did you land on that? Like where did you struggle in the beginning? Was it the niche selection, or beyond that is where you started first having, struggles?
I don't remember exactly. I probably had greater struggle, once the store was up and running, learning how to do Google ads and things like that. But I don't remember clearly how I came to my niche. So I don't mind sharing and being upfront about the fact that I created and still have to this day Standing Desk Nation, which, as you can probably guess, we sold standing desks and to a lesser extent treadmill desks and other ergonomic chairs and products and things like that. But that one, if I recall correctly, I mean, gosh, it's been almost 6 years now. It came to me pretty quickly because I had gone through some pretty severe back problems. I had, at that job I talked about before at Culver City, I had a really bad issue and basically convinced the company to buy me a standing desk, one of the early Vera desks when that company was sort of just getting started. And it was a life-changing event for me. And not just that my back started to feel better, but also it was just like standing during the day just got the juices flowing. It got my mind's working. And again, another thing that probably led a little bit to where I am now. It sounds maybe a little bit silly, but whatever chemical changes that created in my body, it opened my mind up to more possibility. I feel like I had more energy. And so that naturally just came to me when I was going through niche selection and all the numbers lined up at the time, everything that we knew in that moment. I mean, now going in today, if I was doing that same research and creating a store, I probably would have been looking at a lot of different things than I did then. But based on what I knew then, it made perfect sense. And I'm glad I did. I mean, as you know well, you and I were partners in that store for a period of time. It did really well for a while. It's not doing so well today for a variety of reasons. But it was a great business. It supported my family for several years comfortably.
The point I wanted to make of like how you got there is it's you. If anybody sits down with Brian for 30 minutes, you're going to talk anything from, parenting to a variety of different health topics to movement for sure, right? Like you kind of embody this entire movement for a lack of a better word there. Like you talk about this a lot. This is you, right? And so to understand that it really changed your life at a job, and that's why you wanted to sell this to help change other people's lives. And then it like kind of morphs into even more you as the story goes along. But I wanted to touch on that because, John and I have differing opinions on market selection, and you can hear that in other podcasts and on our Patreon. But I do stand firm in what I believe is that you got to give a shit. You got to actually care about this stuff, right? Like if you're selling commercial trash cans, what are the odds you're going to roll out of bed and be like, oh, that fucking brown trash can, man, I can't wait to sell that shit today. Like that's just not going to happen, right? Whereas like you were changed, like your back pain was resolved. You had more clarity, and I can give you some stats. I actually just saved a thing here. I'll just pull it up while we're talking, actually. From Andrew Huberman, during a health symposium at Stanford Med, I learned from a cardiologist colleague that even if we get our 180 minutes of zone 2 cardio per week, the benefits are largely or entirely erased by sitting greater than 5 hours per day. Solution, standing desk, 1-to-1 ratio with sitting and 3 to 4 10-minute walks per day. And so that there's evidence there, like that this truly changes people, and that if you can just add movement into your life, not necessarily exercise, movement into your life, and get off your ass, things are going to change, right? And so you embody that. I love that you chose this niche in the beginning, and you and I went deeper on my own show, the BK Show, about some of the issues that have changed Standing Desk Nation. We can get into that a little bit today, but if you guys want a deeper dive, check out the BK Show. Brian and I did a couple different episodes on there, deep diving into the ups and downs that Standing Desk Nation faced. But I'm glad that you actually said it out loud. I reference this business often. I think we did a lot of cool things over there that I try to teach in Dropship Breakthrough, teach to consulting clients how to build out collection pages, how to build out best pages, things like that. I think we did a lot of cool stuff over there. So thank you so much for saying that out loud so that I feel comfortable saying it out loud as well. Hey, just want to jump in here real quick and say if you're loving this show, the number one thing you can do to help us out is simply go to Spotify or iTunes or whatever you're listening on and smash that follow button, that subscribe button, and leave us a review. It really does help us reach more people. And if you've got a friend that you know should be listening to this, send the podcast over to them. We'd love to have them join us as well. And real quick, 2 quick resources I have for you. If you want to join us in our free Facebook group, you can find that at facebook.com/groups/dropship tribe, or just search the Dropship Tribe. And we also have a paid version of this podcast where you can get even more of John and I in longer form content. You can find that on Patreon at patreon.com/dropship podcast. All right, back to the show.
Well, okay. So back to, there's two things that I would want to like come at you with. Number one, I think you and I are both on the same page that if there is a ethos in the world of drop shipping that you should not share your business and your store. And I understand why that exists. I understand why that ethos is there, and many people have been burned. On the other hand, if you have a business that is so easily ripped off and copied, you probably don't necessarily have a business yet, right? You have the makings of a business, but you've got work to do to get to the point where somebody cannot rip you off. So just a little diatribe there. And I think you and I are probably on the same page in that result. First 6 months, nobody's there yet, right? First 6 months to a year, it takes time to get there, but that's a sign of a different problem. As far as yes, I am lucky that, or at least I consider myself lucky that I am in a space that I'm passionate about. Standing desks, now with InMovement, the more recent business, which is our own, physical products and brand that we sell. And I'm sure Ben and I will get into that more. We're focused a little less on just standing desks and more on how to get more non-exercise movement, non-exercise activity in your day, as a means of counteracting sitting and sedentary behavior. But I'm also of the mind that it's okay to sell things that you're not passionate about. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Cal Newport. Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking the name of any of his books, but one of the things that he would say is that passion might be misunderstood, that working in your passion doesn't necessarily require that you have a specific interest, and then going into that the very act of trying to master some type of work can create passion. So you might sell trash cans is a bad example. It's pretty hard to come up with a passionate way of selling trash cans. But let's just say, I'm not a hockey enthusiast, right? I don't play hockey. I've never really lived in cold enough places to do that. But if I created a hockey supply store, I think you can become passionate about the act of building that store without being passionate about the product itself. So yeah, it's better to be passionate about your subject matter and about your niche, but I think you can come at it both ways and still be very fulfilled, as long as you're really interested in the work itself. I mean, that's what you're doing day to day, right? I'm not playing with standing desks every day or treadmill desks every day, right? I'm playing with ads and writing content and formatting emails and helping with customer service and figuring out what our policies and procedures should be. It's that kind of stuff ultimately is what you spend most of your time doing, independent of your subject matter.
You get passionate about the people you serve, right? So you might not necessarily be passionate about the products.
That's another good way.
But you need to give a shit. Like I sold 3D printers. I didn't necessarily know a whole lot about 3D printers, but I cared about the people who were buying them and what their concerns were. I sold tiny house products. I'm not a tiny house guy. I'm not a tiny guy. How about that? And so I didn't resonate with those people who were buying those products, but I actually, I cared about them. I wanted to reach them, and I was passionate about marketing, right? And I think you can be passionate about both things, and I would just encourage anyone to really think about what lights you up inside, right? I think anybody who gets this going and sees some traction is going to get passionate about marketing. It's fun, and you see results, but in the end of the day, if you can help more people get what they want, that's how you get what you want, right? And so you got to get passionate about the audience. And just for putting your story out there, Brian, I agree with you. I think in the beginning, maybe shut up, maybe don't talk about it. It's probably not good to talk to family and friends either, because they're just going to be like, well, that's never going to work, and they're going to be crabs in the pot for you. And so I don't really talk about my businesses when they first start. Number one, to get that jump start, to get going, and not to have crabs in the pot. But after that, you're doing yourself a disservice. Once you've built the store and you're building content and you're scaling, you're doing yourself a disservice not talking about your business. The more you talk about it, the more opportunities open up. The more people say, oh my God, you're in that? I think I can help you here. And all entrepreneurs want to help each other. And so the more you can be open about your business, the more you're going to have doors open for you.
Agreed. Yeah, well said.
So back to the beginning, I have some questions here, and it seems like you weren't scared at all, which is amazing, right? So like, were you scared to start this? Was there BS running through your head? Did you struggle with niche selection, calling suppliers, website building? Like where were the sticking points for you, Brian, where it was like, you know, where it gets hard, or where you got in your own way?
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that confidence was not my problem. And maybe that's sort of, I don't want to say one of my superpowers, but one of my strengths is, I do have a lot of belief in myself. And
well,
I
it
felt
helps
like
that you're like a 9.5 out of 10, Brian. Like if I was a 9.5 out of 10, I'd be pretty confident too.
Are you, is that a measurement or is that
I will make sure we put a photo of you in the show notes here so people understand.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how to respond to that. Thank you. If only people could see me blushing right now. So yeah, I didn't lack for confidence, and I had a lot of experience just in business in general to fall back on. I've had great mentors from my father and from coaches, and I just, I felt like I was meant to do what I was doing. Where I got bogged down personally, and I know I've coached other people that are the same way. They're highly capable people, but when they get into the weeds of trying to learn new systems, some people, they get into Shopify and they go cross-eyed. Shopify wasn't that bad for me. I felt comfortable there. But when I started getting into my Google Ads account and Google Analytics, I remember kind of going cross-eyed initially and thinking, what does all this information mean? Like, how do I even begin to put all this together, to synthesize this with my background? And that was even with, Allie, my wife, who had direct experience doing a lot of this stuff. I struggled with those sort of things, and in general with dotting I's and crossing T's. That was always where I struggled, where I had to be organized and methodical and planned and manage details. That's probably where I struggled. But I was lucky in that, I came to my niche fairly early, at least the first time around. And I was always good at developing relationships. I mean, that's the other thing that was always a strength of mine. So I had, really good success in the early days, bringing on suppliers, even though, despite the fact that today, that process is entirely different than it was 6 years ago. Even just in that short time, I feel like the process has gone from being very, phone call focused and direct to, you have to be a little bit more methodical. You have to be a little bit more respectful of their time and be wary of picking up the phone and trying to speak with somebody on their time, on your time rather than on their time. I think that's wary. So I guess I jumped off topic a little bit there, but I did not have a ton of fear. And I should also be honest in saying that I had a nice little nest egg to help maintain some of that confidence. We were living in California at the time. We sold our house right around when we were starting. We moved to Colorado to reduce our cost of living. And so we knew we had a good chunk of money to live off of for a while. And I was also doing a couple other things just to bring in a little bit of income at the time too. So I felt I wasn't doing anything else full time, just some part-time stuff, but I felt comfortable that I was going to make it work one way or another. And I wasn't gonna relent until I did figure that out, frankly.
Two big points there, right? Like, I built and sold my first business while working full time, right? So having that financial security there, not burning the boats and jumping in, as maybe some other gurus have told you, and actually having that ability to have security there helped me a lot. And it sounds like it helped you a lot as well, having a nest egg, but also not quitting, right? You'll hear John and I talk about this a lot. There was no other option. You're not going to give up on this until it works, right? And I imagine, Brian, there's no chance in hell you're ever going back to a 9-to-5 job. And so, that's enough motivation for me to not quit right there. What was your big motivation in the beginning? Was it just the freedom and like, no chance I'm going back to that? What was the big motivation there for you?
Well, yeah, as I said, that, the pain that really got us to do it was that, the freedom and time, right? More time together with family. But yeah, you're right. I mean, once you get out of that world and once you start working for yourself and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you'd almost rather die than go back to working for somebody else. I cannot imagine it. And in the 6 years since then, we've had highs and lows. And at those lows, it's never even crossed my mind that I would go back. I mean, I shouldn't say it's never crossed my mind, but it's never even been remotely possible in my mind that I was going to go back and work for somebody else to fix it. I was going to find ways to produce my own income. And on top of that, I had a wife and 2 kids to support. And I'm curious what you think. I always have this debate in my head as to which is better. Is it better to be, the 35-year-old with 2 kids, a wife, tons of skin on the table, and just having to make it work, right? Like, who's going to be more motivated than that? Or is it better to be the 23-year-old with absolutely nothing to lose? You can fail over and over and over again because you only need $1,000 a month and you can live off of top ramen and chicken wings until you make it, right? And I always wonder, who has the advantage of those 2 scenarios? If I could be one or the other, I would rather be the 23-year-old. I know, because you can just keep trying until you succeed, and you can try bigger, right? You can be more grandiose at that stage, perhaps. On the other hand, if you're going to put 2 businesses side by side, I'm probably going to select the 35-year-old with a wife and kids to win over the 23-year-old 9 times out of 10. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think the 23-year-old has bigger cojones, right? They'll throw some bigger shit at the wall and hope it sticks, as well as like they're happy to take a no and keep moving forward and keep moving forward and keep moving forward. Versus,
I hope they are.
I hope they are too. And then the 35-year-old, I'm not getting in your way. Like, if I had to get in between you and your kids and like feeding your kids, there's no chance, right? Like, nothing's going to stop you from doing what you need to do to take care of that. And so both very powerful forces. But again, I'll take youth any day. If you're listening to this and you're in your early 20s, enjoy it. Like you can't, that time is unbelievable. And so, yeah, I would go back just to simply be 23 again.
And my message would be, detach yourself from the concern about failure, right? Failure is not really a failure. That's just try number 1. And it's just lesson number 1. Like, if I could go back myself and just try anything, right? Try all of it, whatever it is. Like, there's nothing wrong if it doesn't work. It is not your failure. Just keep plugging away until you find something that really does work.
Yeah, I think just getting interested in business in general, right? Interested in arbitrage or flipping anything would have been huge for me in my early 20s. I tried a lot of things, but they had nothing to do with business, right? I drank a lot. I went out to the bars looking for ladies a lot. I tried, getting deep into fishing. I got deep into some other weird things, and just like online poker when it was still illegal. I did very well with that. Thanks, George Bush, for ruining that. But like, I did a lot of things, and none of it had to do with business. And had I started like getting inquisitive around business and trying different random things, which you can start a lot of stuff for relatively cheap online, and the education's out there. And so like, had I started back then, I do wonder where I'd be today. But I'm also very grateful for all the stuff that I did go through, because I'm exactly where I want to be right now. I'm very happy.
Yeah, it created the context for who you are now. Yeah, you can't trade it. At that age, I was trying to be the best, sailboat racer in the world. I was traveling all around the world, and Europe and Australia, New Zealand, and even though I have no interest in doing it anymore, I wouldn't trade that time, where I did all that for anything.
We've kind of jumped all around here at your beginnings, but I haven't heard
as usual
the story I want to. Yeah, as usual. That's how our conversations go. But like, I want to hear the story. How did the first sale go? Everybody remembers their first sale, and it's usually very impactful. I want to hear your first sale story.
I don't, it's not a strong memory for me, because I almost feel like the first few months of my store it was out of my control. Things were just sort of happening. I don't feel like I had a real business until a few months in. And, So I believe my first sale was actually one of the most expensive things on my store. So in the standing desk world, I had everything from $200 to $250 desk converters all the way up to $3,000 plus high-end desks and treadmill desks and things like that. And so one of our first sales, our first sale was one of those like $3,000 desks. And we didn't sell another one for like 4 months. It went on to be one of our best suppliers and one of our best set of products from that brand. But I don't know how we got it. It was like it was an accident. We got one sale, and then it went black for a while, and then eventually it picked back up again. But largely because in the early days I just didn't know what I was doing with advertising. I had no clue, and I created a mental barrier in my mind that it was Google's fault and not my fault, right? I told myself that it was Google's fault for making this so complicated when I go inside of Google Ads, and instead of telling myself, no, this is on you, dude, go figure it out. And maybe some of that confidence I talked about earlier, maybe that means maybe it was too far. Maybe some of it was ego. Some of it was overconfidence. And so when something came up that was hard, I made an excuse in my head that it wasn't me, right? It wasn't my fault. I learned that pretty quickly, right? I figured it out. It was me. And now it's probably one of my greatest strengths in, if I'm coaching somebody that's trying to build or has a dropshipping store, ads is one of the places I feel most comfortable and competent. But I don't remember much about it. I got to be honest with you. I think maybe for me, I had how do I say this? I had success in business. I had made, good amounts of money, and I knew that one sale did not equal success. I knew right off the bat. I knew before I started, I had, minimum numbers in mind of monthly revenue that I had to hit. So I almost feel like the first milestone for me wasn't the first sale. It was, I know based on the margins that I have and how much money I think I need to at least live, at minimum, or at least get me through some time. I knew I needed to get to like $30,000 a month. That was, I think, if I recall, that was the first milestone I really set in my head. And so I think that was probably a little bit more prominent than just one sale in my memory.
Well, I don't want to jump through your whole story, but this is a shorter podcast. If you want to hear the ups and downs of Standing Destination, definitely check out the BK show. I'll put those two links in the show notes. But I want to talk about some of the more amazing moments. So I pulled up on my screen in order. We had... it doesn't have the date on here, unfortunately. It looks like October 25th, 2019. I see Standing Destination has a new order for 400 items for $88,000. Like, there was some huge moments in that business where, it's not one-off sales. It's these big sales to businesses or to governments. There were some really cool moments in Standing Destination when it was at its peak.
Yeah, I loved that business. I had so much fun, especially in the first couple years. And we had some really, really high moments and frankly, some really low lows. Some of them are still very, very vivid in my head, but even to this day, when I spend, I don't know, I probably spend less than 30 minutes a month looking over Standing Destination anymore. Just the, InMovement takes up any time that I have. And so I just don't really pay much attention to it anymore. But when I do, every once in a while, when I go in and I start making some wholesale changes, I remember how much joy I had in that business. How I knew every product inside and out. I could tell you, I knew off the top of my head what the price was for every product and all the details about it. I had such amazing, context about the industry. And so all this stuff does. I have way more fond memories of Standing Destination than bad ones, but the memory you're describing, there's actually more to it. So that day we received 2 orders that were massive. We received that one $88,000 order that you're describing, which was essentially dropped in our laps, or dropped in my lap, because I think that was before we were working together, right?
No, that was the 88 was when we were together.
Oh, it was. Okay. So yeah, we got the $88,000 order that was dropped into our lap by a supplier. Basically, they had a customer they couldn't service. It's a whole story, but they brought that business to us because we were their preferred dealer, and I had a really close relationship with their VP of dealer sales. and they just gave us the order, and it was really high profit margin. I want to say we made like 12 grand off of that net. But on the same day, we had another order for like 48,500 too. And I don't remember the details of that one quite as vividly, but it was just crazy that they both hit on the same day. So yeah. And frankly, that one day is more than many stores do in a lifetime or in a year or anything like that. So it was just such a great moment. It was not like, I don't think it was ever like we felt like the skies had parted and it was like this was an undeserved and unbelievable moment. I think it felt very normal, right? Like we knew we had been doing the things that led us up to that. We had strong relationships. We had set up our business to get a lot of big orders, government orders, like you're talking about, enterprise orders. And so it was a great moment. It was like a really joyous day. And I do remember too that those orders were complicated and some of it took, I think, like 3-4 months to completely fulfill everything, because we had to send stuff in stages. And I remember at one point we had to pull stuff directly from the factory overseas and drop ship it somewhere. I don't remember all the details behind this. It's just sort of coming back into my memory. And there were a couple of moments where we thought we might lose parts of it. And I remember losing some sleep one night because of it. And I was having to stay up late and be on the phone with China in the middle of the night. And it was a whole thing. But that's all just part of the, the work and all this stuff. And the one thing I would say that I think was important, that is, I think, a good lesson for other people that are getting into this. It's very easy to think of these businesses as a one-for-one transactional kind of business, right? I sell, or let's say, you sell electric bikes, as so many people do, or you sell outdoor fireplaces, whatever it is. That you one customer comes to your store, you sell them one bike, and then you guys go about your business and you go on to claiming the next customer. Well, what we knew really early on with Standing This Nation was that there's huge potential in bulk orders. And so the nature of our business was we didn't really make a whole lot of money when we sold one desk here, one desk there. That was 95% of our orders were one desk orders. But we knew that it was okay to break even and maybe even lose money on some of those orders, because when the 20 desk order came in, or the 50 desk order, or the 400 desk order came in, there were just massive amounts of profit. So it was just trying to create as much opportunity as we could stomach to bring those big orders into the pipeline through our advertising.
Well, there's some of the greatest moments in my own journey as well, right? My very first store, I had a $25,000 3D printer order, and I remember it vividly. It was amazing. And so to have some of those moments with you as well of these, $88,000 orders and $50,000 orders and these big government orders, those are great days, right? It takes a lot of work and a lot of build up to get to those moments, but those moments are something I'll remember forever. Honestly, I'll remember those moments and just reflect with a smile of like how great a feeling it is to make that kind of money in such a short span and really see all your hard work pay off.
And what's funny is so much of what made those big orders work, I won't even touch anymore. I don't do anymore. And it's not that they aren't worthwhile. It's not that I have any regrets over it. It's just that it's funny how things evolve. And now I've got this other business that is a much more sustainable, everyday kind of revenue stream, where you don't have to work your tail off trying to find government orders and sort of waiting for that one big day. And I don't want to falsely cast what Standing This Nation was. It wasn't like we didn't sell any desks and then one day of the month we got big $50,000 orders. It wasn't like that at all. That just happened to be sort of the one of the high moments of the whole thing. But it's funny that knowing how much work I put into trying to get some of those government orders and in hindsight, was it worth it? Yes. Would I do it now, considering that I have another steady income stream that I could rely on a little bit more, and that's mine and sustainable day over day, week over week, month over month? It changes your priorities.
But there's a lot of government money out there, right? Especially if you're listening to this and you're a female, the government has to allocate money to female-led businesses, female-owned businesses. If you're a female and you're former military, they have to allocate money for that. They have to allocate money.
Or if you're minority-owned.
Minority-owned as well. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in the B2B space selling to the government, and they buy everything. What's a good website somebody can go like dig around, Brian? I don't even remember the name of it anymore.
SAM is the name of the system. It stands for System of Acquisition. Gosh, it's been so long, I can't remember. But look up SAM Government, SAM Government. I think if you search that, it'll probably take you to where you need to go. It's complex, and it's probably changed a little bit since I've been in there last. But you've got to set up. You set yourself up with through this whole convoluted process to be a government seller. But if you can figure it out, if you can get that done and start seeking out opportunities to sell the federal government products that they're looking for, and guys, they buy everything, everything you can think of. I know somebody who sold massage chairs to the federal government, at pretty high clips. Like they buy everything. So if you can get your SAM account set up and start looking for online opportunities, and you just basically go online, and there's a place. Every major government purchase has to be posted publicly on one site. You can look and see, and then you basically bid on it. Unfortunately, the one sad part of it is that it's completely a price game, right? Ultimately, that all things being equal, they're just going to take the lowest priced option. So there is some cannibalization of margins when you're competing against other sellers. But be honest with yourselves. You're most of you are going to be solopreneurs, or maybe you have a couple of VAs. You have no overhead. You can afford, if you sell something for $20,000 at a 10% margin, $2,000 is nothing to shake a stick at. That's a nice chunk of change for you. So don't be overly proud. Don't try to get the same 20% margins you're searching for in your day-to-day sales.
Well, it's sam.gov. I'll put the link in the show notes as well. Pretty easy to remember. I'm glad you could remember the name, Brian, because I couldn't remember. I remember looking up stuff, though, for other businesses I was a part of when we worked together, and I was shocked that they were buying that stuff, too. It made zero sense to me why a government would want some of those products, but they literally buy everything, so check that out. Look, so Standing Destination turned into something crazy. When we were together, sales started to get more expensive, right? The cost of acquisition, the cost of acquiring a customer got more expensive. And I remember, kind of looking at different directions we could go, and you spotted a brand that we sold that was kind of, they were going to go away. This brand was going to go away, and you floated the idea, why don't we step in here and make this our brand? So all you, I don't want to take any credit for this. This is all you. This is an amazing opportunity that you built out of nowhere. And if you remember back a couple of years ago, y'all remember when the Midwest was like -50 for a couple days there? This is the day Brian and I decided to go to the Midwest. I already lived there. I drove all the way to Chicago in -40, -50 degree temperatures to close this deal. Can you talk us through just briefly how did that deal come about? What did that look like? And then where has that evolved to now? Because I think dropshipping is the beginning. It's not the end, and it's the beginning of you learning marketing. It's the beginning of you launching your own products. It's the beginning of a lifelong journey, but it's a great first step. And so I want to show people where you can go with this.
I agree. It is a beginning, and it's a good one. Like I said earlier, I think dropshipping is unique in that it is one of the easier. I hesitate to use the word easy, but it is one of the lowest barriers to entry to get into selling online, and specifically selling, physical products online. And for any of you that have a vision for your business beyond just supporting, traveling through East Asia or Europe or something like that, you recognize right off the bat that there probably has to be something more than just one dropshipping store in order to support yourself, or create, or to actually create true wealth, I guess would be the way I would restate that. For many people, the first obvious solution to that is I'm just going to create a bunch of drop shipping stores, right? And we know people who've done that, who've literally, they started by creating one or two, and then they just sort of turned that process into like one giant procedure. And some people even built teams to support them. And so they would just take a new niche, plug it into that process, and then just keep pumping out drop shipping stores. In fact, we even know somebody who creates drop shipping stores and then just sells them before they even turn them on, right? But I personally, I'm much more a fan of creating your own products, creating your own brand. I think it's a more defensible long-term position. It's something that I think you can sink your teeth into more and be more passionate about. There's a lot of reasons why I think that is a preferable way to, generate real wealth and generate real long-term, lasting, sustainable business. So I always had that in mind. Like I said earlier, I was, looking for possible things, possible companies that might white label for us early on. But basically once that passed, I just sort of tabled it and thought, let's just get this store up and running, and we'll wait and see if any opportunities present themselves. And sure enough, one of our suppliers, like you said, we basically, through the rumor mill, I heard that they were shutting down operations. And now just to grant a little bit, or give a little bit of context here, this happened to be my favorite brand. This was the company who had what I thought were the best products, at least the best standing desk converter product that we sold. It was one of the things I was most excited about of all the products that we sold. And I liked the company. I liked the messaging that they had built around it, where they weren't just trying to create a product. They were trying to create, they were trying to relate a mission of counteracting sitting and sedentary behavior, of moving more. And the name of that company was InMovement. So I guess that makes sense. And they were owned by literally a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate who had created this company thinking they were going to take advantage of the standing desk revolution that was happening in the 2015, 2016 era, when Veridesk was taking off, and it was just this ever expanding blue ocean. And, they allocated resources and budget to that, like they thought it was going to be a 9-figure, multi-$100 million business. And they created a successful business, multi-million-dollar business, but not a multi-$100 million business, not one that supported the schwanky, downtown Chicago loft office and the giant display at NeoCon and all this stuff that they had poured into the business. And so they were going to abandon it. And there were some other things happening internally with the company that sort of led to this as well. They had dabbled in trying to sell it a little bit, but didn't find anything that worked. And so they were just moving on. So long story short, I came in little nobody from Colorado, right? Small business that was a dealer of theirs that ironically, we had been one of their most successful dealers, even compared to big, multinational companies that were selling their products. We were one of the most successful. And so, I managed to get an audience with a couple of people and say, look, I'm interested in buying this. Can we make this work? I threw out some dollar figures. I mean, I don't even remember where I came up with some of the numbers that I came to. And long story short, what they ended up telling me was, look, we don't really want your money, right? Like, the amount of money you have or you're talking about doesn't change anybody's life here, right? We profit hundreds of millions of dollars a year. What do we care? And they said, but we do want to see this brand live on. And there was, like, you could tell there was a genuine passion in some people to see the brand keep going, that people that believed in it. And hey, why don't we just participate in the long-term upside of the products? So we went in there and after almost a year of back and forth and trying to get to the right person and a little bit of negotiating here and there, we basically came to an agreement that was almost entirely seller finance. They basically said, look, we want a small amount up front to help pay for some of the lawyers' fees and things like that. And then we want a royalty of every sale of these products that we're basically handing over to you in this sale. And the rest was history. We bought InMovement for basically nothing, basically no cash, and a small percentage of every sale, and took off from there. And then, as you know, I don't, not to rush ahead, but is it 2 years later? Trying to remember the timeline of all this. No, I think it was 1 year later. We bought another company. InMovement had also sold a treadmill desk early on, and we kept having people come to us saying, "Hey, when is your treadmill desk going to be back in stock?" And we did not, as part of the sale, we didn't get the rights to sell that treadmill desk that they had sold previously, and we didn't want it because it was a crazy expensive, over engineered product. But I'd come across this other company a few times who had a really great treadmill desk product, one that I thought was really differentiated and special compared to the rest of the market. And I originally went to them to see if they would sort of private label some of it for us. And they basically came back to me and said, we're not really interested in doing that, but we are considering selling. Would you like to buy it? And again, the rest was kind of history there. And we initially worked out the same kind of deal. We ended up with a seller finance deal. And so today, I've got a very successful physical products business, and that came from 2 purchases that basically took zero cash out of my pocket to make happen. It was all relationships and right place, right time, and the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's probably mind-boggling to someone listening to this, that you can acquire a business with no money down. Like even in the outside world, SBA loans, you need 10% down to buy a business, right? And so like if you can put 10% down, which can add up to be a lot in a big business, but if you do these private deals, there's a lot of business owners who are just ready to be done, and they're ready to pass their business on to somebody who wants to operate it, and they're happy to be paid out over a course of time or do a royalty deal. And so like I was in awe, like being your partner in this, I was focused solely on like how can we get Standing Us Nation to what it once was, and move away from having to pay exorbitant amounts to acquire a customer and move into SEO and things that I love. And you were like, why don't we just go acquire this business and then go acquire another one? And so like kudos to you. Watching you do that was incredible. Watching you negotiate these deals to make them extremely favorable to your parent company and to us was very fun to watch. And really, I just really want to point this out for anyone listening. Like that again, dropshipping is the beginning. You can definitely make a living on your dropshipping business with very little employees. You can also scale that into something meaningful, which I've done before, helping scale a company to 8 figures, or you can pivot into your own line of products, or both. Maybe I'll have those guys on the show too to talk about how they went in different directions of like creating their own products. But like your ability to go acquire a brand and make it our own, and then go acquire another brand and like house it underneath that brand. Like everybody listening, go to InMovement.com and check out what I think is the best treadmill desk on the market. Like it's twice as wide and half as long. I know all the selling points here, but it's legit like the best product on the market. And so you went out and acquired the best product on the market, which makes your marketing extremely easy. You don't have to sell this as hard when you know you have the absolute best product on the market. So, I'm over here clapping. Those were 2 incredible moves that really anybody can do. Like it's going to take some planning. It's going to take some thinking. But you were able to execute this with very little out of your pocket and a lot of your time, of course, but it sets you up to be able to operate a business where you import, treadmill desks now, and you're able to spread your message of movement across the brand that is yours, right?
Yeah, and I would emphasize, like, don't take the opinion out of this that I'm like some master negotiator and that's why this happened. The only thing that I would say that put us in the position to do this was I was relentless. I've always been relentless about my relationships with the people that I do business with, and even the ones I don't do business with. I mean, I just always trying to build any relationships with somebody that that where we have relatable interests in an industry, whatever the case may be. And so, with InMovement, early on, it was my relationship that allowed me to even get tipped off, to even know that they were closing the business down, because they were not even saying that publicly. And then I was able to use that relationship to find the right person and then build a relationship with them and find, it wasn't like I was trying to negotiate terms favorable to me. It was more about understanding what it is they want or what they need and trying to figure out how we can, make a deal symbiotic, how we can benefit each other. And the same thing with Unsit. I mean, it was 2 guys that had started this business who were really great product minds mean, one of them I think is just, he's kind of a brilliant inventor and technical, engineering thinker. But he's not a marketer, and he recognized he had sort of reached the limit of his ability. He didn't really know how to take Unsit to the next level. And, here we come along, that's our expertise. And so it wasn't, here I am with a, very successful physical products business. I am not a product designer. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a master negotiator. It was just relationships. It was just having empathy, right? So not just caring about your customer, giving a shit about your customer, giving a shit about everybody, right? And in doing so, you just, if you do give a shit about the people that you work with and deal with and interact with on a regular basis, and you make the effort to build relationships with them, good things come your way. And if you do it with empathy, all the better. And so it's just, that's how opportunities came our way.
Well, you're hitting everything I love to hear, right? As our friend George says, relationships beat algorithms, building relationships through kindness, empathy, thoughtfulness. I love me some Gary Vee as well. And so like you're saying, everything I believe in, these are some of my core values, and obviously it pays off in the business world, right? I'm going to botch this a little bit, but Zig Ziglar said, like, if you can help enough people reach their goals, you're going to reach your goal, right? And so, like, actually giving a shit about everyone else rather than what's in it for me, and like building those relationships, they're going to pay dividends in the end. So, again, clapping over here because it's amazing to watch. It was amazing to be part of that. It was amazing to watch you from the outside, and it was amazing to watch you as a friend make those moves and see your journey from 2016, just getting started to now acquiring 2 different businesses and running your brand and living in an RV. Like, one of my questions is, where is this journey taking you? It's taking you right where you want to be, right? Being able to operate these brands, but also traveling the country with your family and spending time with your kids. I have a few more questions I want to ask you of like where you are now. Like, how has this journey changed you as a person, Brian?
It's a good question. I haven't thought about that. I mean, I guess I would say I'm a more, just as a result of all of this, maybe less, this is less about the business I'm in and just more about the community, being a part of e-commerce and online communities. I have a better sense for the possibilities of the world. And it's something that my wife and I talk a lot about with our when we're talking about how to teach our kids and educate our kids. You and I talk about this sometimes, about how there are so many ways to make a living in today's world. And so I'm just so open-minded to all the different possibilities there are, that if you have competence or expertise in any one area, you can, in today's world, you can make a living off of it, and you can probably make a living off of it from just about anywhere in the world. And ironically too, I've sort of come full circle. I've become almost more bullish now too on physical businesses, local businesses. That one of the things that we've seen recently with all of the shift to working from home and online purchasing and online behavior, there are certain things that are just irreplaceable. There are certain businesses locally in your town that will always be needed. So I don't know. There's probably a million things off the top of my head. Those are the things that pop into my head first. I guess the other big thing I've learned is that there really is no shortcut. There really is no easy way to success. Even I think had a little bit of a vision in my head that this was going to be easy, that anybody can do it. And that just by, so often I met a lot of students that I've coached over the years where they always say, like, I typed in how to make money online, and eventually they come to drop shipping or whatever it is, and that's how they meet me, right? And I think we all kind of have a little bit of that idea in our head, like how it's really like, how do I make money easy online, or what's the easiest way to make money online? And you always kind of have a sense when you start that this thing you're doing, that it's like this little niche pocket of opportunity that's different from the others, and that it's you're sort of arbitraging in a way that it's just going to be easy, that just by building it and by being in the right place at the right time, you're going to build a successful business. And I know now that no longer likely exists, or maybe it never even really did. You still have to execute. You still have to be smart. You still have to do good things. Just by virtue of signing up for a course or learning something, you are not going to have a successful business. You've got to put the work in to do it.
Yeah, you got to do the work. No question. Nothing comes easy. I would say this process is simple, right? We try to avoid the word easy at Dropship Breakthrough because nothing's easy, right? Anything worth having is going to be hard, but this process is simple. It's one of the more simple methods of creating a business online with the perks of low overhead and low startup costs. And so I agree with you there. I love that your framework has opened, like your ability to see opportunities open. I would say that's something that's happened for me over the years too. I see opportunity everywhere. And now with kids who are starting to ask questions about money and things like that, I start seeing it even more of like just everything we drive by, I try to explain to them how the pipeline of who made money on this process along the way works. And that's been fun in itself. All right. So easy answer to this next question is, you're sitting in an RV. That's the easy answer. Let's try to come up with another answer. What's the coolest thing you've been able to do since you started that you couldn't have done in your previous 9-to-5 life?
Yeah. Before it was the RV, the first big thing that we did that really sort of solidified that we had reached our goal of true freedom, right? Of freedom of time, freedom to do whatever the hell we wanted to, was in 2018. We took a month-long trip to Washington State. We rented a house for a week right across the street from the beach on Whidbey Island. That was kind of that was like the initial watermark of, okay, we've made it. We've done it. Like we're able to do this. We feel financially comfortable while we're doing it. So that was probably a high point. But I would say that I don't think anything matched the high of purchasing InMovement. I mean, I think that was, again, that is that's not so much like a lagging indicator of all the work. It that was the business itself. I guess what I'm saying is that the business itself is the high point, right? That the accomplishments and that one specifically was probably the high point of all of it. Being able to purchase what was a multi-million-dollar business and to negotiate with literally $1 billion+ company in doing so. Man, that felt good to get that done. And maybe that speaks some to what we were talking about earlier, that ultimately you end up finding the passion in the work itself, often more so than the subject matter that you're working on. And that was definitely a defining moment for me.
Well, I could talk to you for hours, but I'm going to wrap it up with one last question. A lot of people who are going to listen to this episode, who are listening currently, are just starting, or they're thinking about starting. What would you say to that person who's at the beginning of their journey? What would you say to them? Well,
there's a lot of things. I mean, the first thing I would say is it is a journey, right? So buckle in and be ready for a long ride. Don't look for overnight success. I mean, be prepared to start, to iterate, to restart, all those things. I just don't go into this and don't ever be in this world, in the entrepreneurial world, trying to quickly get to an endpoint. Right. I'm going to get to X and then I've made it. I'm done. Right. It's an ever ongoing process that will never stop. So that's probably the first thing, just from a mindset standpoint. Build that mental framework in your head that forces you to just be relentless and forces you to overlook any sort of failure or negative moments. Forces you to look at them at nothing less than just a bump in the road, right? That's all they are. Or sorry, nothing more than a bump in the road, excuse me. But the other thing, if we're talking more specifically about drop shipping, I would have a lot to say about the niche selection process for anybody that's just getting into it. I do think it's the most important step in the whole process is finding a good niche. And I encourage everyone to be really creative. Take a little bit of time and think about things that aren't just the obvious ones that that are within eyesight inside of your house or your garage or something like that. Think beyond that. Think of something that you can really connect with people about, something that they're passionate about or interested in, or a hobby that they might have. And just, I think early on, when I first started coaching, I coached a lot of people to give themselves a deadline. Give yourself a 2-week deadline, for example. I would say to decide what your niche is, because there is the risk of overthinking it, right? As many people do. You can just go on and on and on and never make a decision, because how do you, right? There's too many things unknown. For example, one thing you're never really going to know until you start calling suppliers is what kind of margins are you going to have in this niche. You really just don't know how much money you could make on a per sale basis until you're in the weeds, until you've already created your website, for goodness sake. But my thinking then, and it still is today, like at some point you just have to take a leap of faith and do it, and just know that you can always backtrack and start over again if you need to. See previous point. But definitely be creative. I do think 6 years after I started, I do think it's harder. I do think that you have to be more creative. You have to be smarter. You have to think a little bit bigger. And I think it's a little bit harder to get suppliers than it was 6 years ago. And certainly when we were starting, there were people saying that already then, right? People who had done it 3 years earlier, they were talking about how much harder it's become. So be really thoughtful about the niche that you're getting into, and go into it knowing that there's some unique value that you can create in some way, right? And it might be a really narrow focus, so if you're selling e-bikes, to go back to that example, I think a narrow focus makes a lot of sense. You can add a lot of value by being an expert on what is a very technical sale and really doesn't encompass anything larger, right? If somebody's buying an e-bike, they're buying an e-bike. That's the pain. That's the solution, all right there. Just, it's that e-bike. I want one. I'm going to buy one. Now make it easy for me. Help me figure out which one I need. If you're thinking like, I'm going to sell outdoor fireplaces, to go back to that example, what pain are you solving by being the outdoor fireplace guy, right? I mean, the person that's buying an outdoor fireplace probably has a bigger problem or a bigger project in mind. They're not just looking for an expert. They don't have any need for an expert in outdoor fireplaces. They're probably trying to create a really kick-ass outdoor space, on their back patio or in their backyard or something like that. So solve that problem, right? Find some way to create value beyond just having a store. And part of that maybe is to say, as you're thinking about niche selection, stop thinking about products and start thinking about people and their problems, or people and their desires. You can look at it either way. That's how you find the niche. And then the question becomes, how do I, as a little guy, right, as a one-off, who I don't have the resources that Amazon, Home Depot, or Office Depot or whatever. I don't have the resources that Wayfair has. But one thing I do have is I can communicate, I can talk, I can write content, and I can be specific. I can solve a problem very directly, whereas they're trying to solve a million problems at once. So how do I emphasize that advantage that I have for that person and that problem?
Love it. Sell a feeling and an after state. The product is just a vehicle to get them to that feeling and to that after state. I mean, you're preaching to the choir over here, Brian. So look, I appreciate having you on. If anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you, Brian?
I would say probably Facebook Messenger. I don't know, just search Brian Angel in there. I don't even remember what my handle is anymore. I don't. I'll be honest. I'm a little bit hard to find at times, and I do that intentionally because I focus my time on my family and my business, but I'm always happen to be in contact with somebody and answer questions, and just bear with me if I'm slow, even if it takes me a week or something like that to get back to you. Don't take it personally. I don't put a lot of time into those places.
Also, I think following your family on Instagram is incredible. I believe it's at InMovement Family. I'll put a link in the show notes. just the watching you guys do your little thing. I know your wife hates posting all this stuff, but it's amazing to watch what you're able to do by being an entrepreneur. And so like, I'm happy to put that in the show notes and tell everybody to give you a follow over there.
Yeah. By all means, follow us. You can just sort of follow along. We're not like everyday posters. Basically my wife, she's consistently about 2 months behind, I would say. And we just sort of, every destination we go to, we usually have like 1 or 2 posts and occasionally but it is, I imagine some of you could have a lot of fun. And if you happen to be somebody like me, who's maybe a little bit older and already have a family, if that helps put you in the headspace and helps you visualize your version of this with your family, then that's awesome. I'm glad that I was able to help you in that way.
Well, thanks for coming on, buddy. I appreciate your time.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Dropship Podcast. You can find all the show notes for this episode at dropshippodcast.com. And if you're ready to take the next step in your dropshipping journey, we invite you to join us inside Dropship Breakthrough, where John and I will walk you through step by step in starting your own high-ticket dropshipping e-commerce business. But that's not all. Dropship Breakthrough will also teach you everything you'll need to know to grow your business and take it to the next level. So head over to dropshipbreakthrough.com and sign up for our free training that will help you take the first steps towards building and growing your own profitable high-ticket dropshipping business.